It was a chilly Monday morning when the new CEO, Emma Reynolds, arrived at the headquarters of Prime Tech Industries. She had opted to keep her first day low-key, wearing a simple cardigan, an old pair of jeans, and sneakers. Emma was never one to flaunt wealth. She believed that hard work and humility mattered more than appearances. She walked into the grand lobby, her heart beating a little faster. This was a new chapter of her life, one she had worked tirelessly to achieve. She had been brought up in a modest family, and though life hadn't always been easy, her determination had brought her to this moment. However, her excitement was quickly interrupted. Hey, stop right there. A deep, annoyed voice called out. Emma turned to see a security guard glaring at her from behind the desk. His name tag read Mike. "You can't just walk in here like that," Mike said, crossing his arms. "This isn't some shopping mall. Employees need a badge to enter. Or are you one of those people here to ask for help?" His tone dripped with sarcasm. Emma was taken aback. "I'm here to meet someone," she replied calmly, trying not to let his hostility bother her. Mike gave her a once-over, his eyes scanning her plain outfit. "Look, lady, we get all sorts here. If you're looking for donations or a temp job, you're in the wrong place. Go back out and try somewhere else." Emma's cheeks flushed. She wasn't offended by his assumption, she had faced similar judgment before, but it still stung. "Actually," she said, taking a deep breath, "I'm supposed to be here. I'm Emma Reynolds." Mike smirked. "Sure you are," he said, rolling his eyes, "and I'm the president of the company." Before she could respond, he pointed to the door. "Let's not waste each other's time, move along." Emma hesitated for a moment, debating whether to explain further, but then decided against it. She knew she'd have her chance to set things straight soon enough. Emma stood outside for a moment, taking a deep breath to steady herself. The encounter with Mike had left her shaken, not because of what he said, but because it reminded her of the biases she had faced her entire life. She shook her head slightly and decided not to let it ruin her day. Finding another entrance, she stepped into a quieter part of the building. The halls were lined with framed photographs showcasing the company's achievements and smiling employees, a stark contrast to the judgmental atmosphere she had just experienced. "Good morning, ma'am. Can I help you?" A cheerful voice greeted her. Emma turned to see a receptionist with a warm smile, her polished appearance and kind demeanor instantly putting Emma at ease. "Yes, I'm here for a meeting," Emma replied, handing over her ID. The receptionist's eyes widened slightly as she scanned the ID, but her smile never faltered. "Oh, of course, Ms. Reynolds, we've been expecting you. Let me escort you to the conference room." As they walked through the halls, the receptionist chatted politely, pointing out key areas of the building. Emma nodded and smiled, but her mind was elsewhere. Mike's voice echoed in her thoughts. The dismissive tone, the way he had sized her up, and the blatant assumption that she didn't belong there. She glanced at the employees bustling around, each one focused on their tasks. Did Mike treat them the same way? How many people had walked through those doors, only to face his judgment? It wasn't just the words that lingered, it was the feeling of being dismissed, of being unseen. By the time they reached the conference room, Emma had pushed those thoughts aside, at least for the moment. She needed to focus. This was her chance to set the tone for her leadership. As the receptionist opened the door, Emma was met with a wave of warm smiles and welcoming faces. The senior management team stood as she entered, their enthusiasm evident. One of them, a tall man with silver hair and a firm handshake, stepped forward. "Welcome, Miss Reynolds. We've been waiting for you." Emma returned their smiles, her gratitude genuine. "Thank you. It's a pleasure to finally meet all of you." As the introductions continued and the team shared their excitement about her leadership, Emma felt a flicker of pride. She had worked hard to reach this point, and these people believed in her. Yet, despite the warm reception, a part of her couldn't let go of what had happened earlier. Did Mike treat everyone like that? Or had she been singled out because of her simple attire? Either way, it gnawed at her. If an employee or visitor had experienced the same treatment, how would that reflect on the company's culture? Emma knew she couldn't ignore it. Not today, but soon, she would address it. Respect and kindness weren't just buzzwords to her, they were values she intended to uphold, no matter how small the issue might seem to others. For now, She turned her full attention to the team, determined to make her first day a step toward creating the inclusive, respectful workplace she envisioned. The afternoon sun cast long beams of light through the large office windows as Emma strolled through the halls of Prime Tech Industries. She had spent the better part of the day in meetings with the senior management team, laying the groundwork for her vision for the company. But now, she wanted to step away from the polished conference rooms and executive discussions. She believed the heart of any company wasn't found in its boardrooms, but in the people who kept everything running day by day. Emma's approach to leadership was different. She wanted to be accessible, to know her employees on a personal level. Walking through the different departments, she introduced herself to small groups, shaking hands and sharing smiles. The warmth she received was genuine, and it reassured her that she had joined a team worth investing in. Eventually, her steps brought her back to the lobby, the same place where her morning had begun on a sour note. As she entered, her eyes immediately landed on Mike. He was leaning against the security desk, chatting animatedly with a coworker, his expression smug and carefree. Emma hesitated for a moment. Part of her wanted to walk past, but she knew this was a moment that couldn't be ignored. Taking a deep breath, she walked toward him, her posture straight and confident. "Excuse me," she said, her voice steady but firm. Mike turned, his relaxed demeanor shifting instantly, his brow furrowed as he recognized her. "Oh, it's you again," he said, his tone laced with irritation. "Didn't I tell you?" Before he could finish his sentence, the sound of hurried footsteps interrupted him. "Ms. Reynolds, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry I didn't meet you earlier," a voice called out. Both Emma and Mike turned to see a young employee rushing toward them, looking flustered. The person stopped in front of Emma, adjusting their glasses nervously. "Everyone's been talking about your arrival today. Please, let me personally show you around the rest of the building." Mike froze, his smug expression vanishing in an instant. His eyes darted between Emma and the employee, confusion quickly giving way to realization. "Miss Reynolds?" he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. His face turned pale as the words sank in. Emma met his wide-eyed gaze, her expression calm but serious. "Yes, Mike," she said, her tone measured. "I'm Emma Reynolds, the new CEO." For a moment, the lobby was completely silent. The hum of the air conditioning and the faint chatter from nearby offices were the only sounds. Mike's mouth opened and closed as though he was trying to form words, but nothing came out. Finally, he stammered. "I didn't know. I thought." Emma held up a hand, silencing him gently but firmly. "You thought I didn't belong here," she said, her voice unwavering. "Because of how I was dressed, you assumed." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "And you treated me with disrespect." Mike's face turned beet red. He shifted uncomfortably, his confidence from earlier completely gone. His coworker, who had been chatting with him moments before, slowly backed away, clearly wanting no part in what was unfolding. Emma didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her presence alone carried an authority that demanded attention. "Let me ask you something, Mike," she continued, her eyes never leaving his. "If I had been someone else, a visitor, a potential client, or even just an employee having a bad day, would you have treated them the same way? Would you have dismissed them so quickly?" Mike lowered his gaze to the floor, unable to meet her eyes. I'm sorry," he mumbled. Emma nodded slightly. "I believe in giving people second chances," she said. "But this is something you need to think about. Judging someone based on their appearance doesn't just hurt them, it reflects poorly on you and the company you represent." Her words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Mike swallowed hard and nodded, his face still flushed with embarrassment. Emma glanced at the young employee who had come to greet her. "Thank you for your help," she said warmly. "I'd love for you to show me around." As she walked away, leaving Mike standing there, Emma couldn't help but hope that he had learned something from the encounter. For her, it wasn't about getting an apology. It was about setting a standard. Respect and kindness were non-negotiable, and she intended to make that clear from day one. Mike stood frozen in place, his confident facade completely shattered. The color in his face fluctuated between pale and flushed, as if his body couldn't decide whether to feel humiliation or regret. For the first time that day, he seemed at a loss for words. When he finally spoke, His voice was barely audible. "I'm so sorry," he murmured, his gaze fixed on the polished floor tiles. "I didn't mean to. I just—" Emma raised a hand, her calm but firm gesture silencing him instantly. "Everyone makes mistakes, Mike," she said, her tone measured yet filled with intent. "But this isn't just about a mistake. It's about a mindset. The way you spoke to me today could have been the way you spoke to anyone, someone who needed help, someone who didn't fit into your idea of what success looks like." Her words hit him like a weight he couldn't shrug off. Mike's lips parted slightly as if to protest, but he quickly thought better of it. Instead, he swallowed hard and shook his head. "No, ma'am, it's not," he said quickly. His voice had a trembling sincerity, the bravado from earlier completely gone. Emma's expression softened just enough to let him know she wasn't here to humiliate him, but she wasn't going to let him off the hook either. "This company is about more than profits and policies," she continued, her gaze steady and direct. "It's about people. It's about how we treat them. Not just our clients or executives, but everyone who walks through these doors. If we fail at that, we fail as a company." Mike nodded, his eyes still fixed on the floor. The silence that followed felt heavy, but it wasn't oppressive. It was reflective, almost instructive. Emma took a step closer, lowering her voice but not her conviction. "I believe in second chances, Mike. I really do. But I also believe in accountability." Her tone softened, but her words carried weight. "Let this be a lesson, not just for your job but for life. You never know someone's story. You never know what they've been through or who they are, and you certainly never know who you're talking to." For the first time, Mike dared to look up. His face was etched with a mixture of guilt and gratitude. "You're right," he admitted quietly. "I was wrong to judge you, or anyone, for how they look. I don't know what else to say." Emma gave him a small, understanding nod. "Sometimes there's nothing else to say, Mike. What matters is what you do next." The words hung in the air, offering not just a reprimand but an opportunity for redemption. Mike straightened slightly, his posture less defensive now, as though the weight of his regret had lifted just enough for him to stand taller. "Thank you," he said earnestly, his voice steadier now. "Thank you for giving me a chance to make it right." Emma held his gaze for a moment longer, then gave him a small smile. "Don't thank me yet. Show me you mean it," she replied gently but firmly. As Emma turned and walked away with her guide, Mike stood in the lobby, replaying her words in his head. It wasn't just the embarrassment or the fear of losing his job that stung, it was the realization of how narrowly his assumptions had defined his actions. For the first time in a long time, Mike saw himself clearly. And he knew this was a moment he wouldn't forget, a moment that would push him to be better, not just at work, but in how he saw the world around him. Over the weeks that followed, Emma proved to be an exceptional leader. She made it a point to connect with every employee, from interns to executives. She brought in initiatives that encouraged kindness and respect in the workplace, ensuring that no one felt judged based on their background or appearance. As for Mike, he became one of the biggest advocates for Emma's vision. Humbled by the experience, he worked hard to treat everyone with the respect they deserved. And while Emma never mentioned the incident again, it became a story whispered in the halls, a reminder that true leadership isn't about appearances. It's about character, humility, and the courage to break down assumptions. In the end, Emma didn't just change a company, she changed the way people saw each other, and that made all the difference. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story and it resonated with you, don't forget to give it a thumbs up to show your support. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to leave a comment below. Your feedback means the world to us. And hey, don't keep this story to yourself. Share it with your friends and family to spread the message. If you're new here, or haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an inspiring story like this one. Your support helps us create more meaningful content, and we're so grateful to have you as part of our community. Thank you for being here.